There was no press release. There was no carefully worded statement from the front office. There was no agent-to-agent phone call or back-channel conversation filtered through intermediaries. Todd Monken walked straight up to Dillon Gabriel and told him face-to-face, "You are not part of my plans." That is how the new head coach of the Cleveland Browns operates, and that single conversation has set off one of the most significant quarterback controversies of this entire offseason. What followed that meeting has reshaped the entire direction of the Cleveland Browns franchise, and the ripple effects are still being felt across the league. The reported conversation between Monken and Gabriel was direct, unambiguous, and unlike almost anything we see at the NFL level. In a league where coaches hide behind media training and diplomatic language, Monken chose a completely different path. He sat down with Gabriel and told him clearly that the team would be exploring trade options, that Gabriel did not fit the new offensive system being installed in Cleveland, and that the Browns were prepared to move him in exchange for either a veteran wide receiver or a developmental quarterback who better aligned with Monken's vision for the offense. That kind of honesty is almost unheard of in professional football. Teams spend months, sometimes years, stringing along quarterbacks with vague promises and non-committal language. Monken did the opposite. He gave Gabriel the truth, and he gave it to him personally. To understand why Monken's opinion carries the weight that it does, you have to understand who he is and what he brings to the table. He is not a first-time coordinator learning on the job. He arrives in Cleveland with a sharp, well-documented offensive mind, a proven track record of developing quarterbacks, and a clear system that demands precision, timing, and accountability from everyone on the roster. When a coach of his caliber steps into a building and immediately makes a decision this definitive about his quarterback room, it is because he has already done the homework. Monken was not watching Gabriel with fresh eyes during OTAs. He had studied the tape, consulted with staff members, and evaluated the locker room culture long before he ever had that face-to-face conversation. By the time he sat down with Gabriel, the evaluation was already complete. The meeting was not a deliberation, it was a notification. And a significant part of that evaluation involved Shedeur Sanders. From the moment Shedeur entered the picture as a legitimate option for the Cleveland Browns, the depth chart had a new foundation. Monken reportedly saw in Shedeur exactly the qualities he had been looking for: composure under pressure, natural leadership instincts, and the ability to read a defense in real time at an elite level. These are traits you either have or you don't. Coaches cannot manufacture them through scheme or repetition. Monken identified them immediately. He described Shedeur Sanders as an elite playmaker, language that goes far beyond standard coach speak during an introductory period. That is a declaration. When a newly hired head coach uses that specific language about a specific player that early in his tenure, he is staking his reputation on that assessment. That is how strongly Monken believes in Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur's strengths are well documented and they are significant. His ability to go through his progressions quickly at the college level translated into a remarkably clean decision-making process under pressure. In high-leverage situations, third and long, 2-minute drill, red zone, Shedeur consistently elevated his performance rather than pulling back from the moment. His teammates responded to him differently than they responded to most quarterbacks. The energy in the huddle changed when he was under center. The sideline communication was sharper. These are not subjective observations, they are patterns that showed up consistently across multiple seasons at Colorado under head coach Dillon Sanders. The combination of natural poise, football intelligence, and leadership presence is exactly what Monken has built his offensive system around, and Shedeur fits that profile at every single level. Dillon Gabriel, by contrast, showed flashes of what he could be, but never sustained it when it mattered most. The arm talent was visible. The football IQ was present in certain situations. But in the moments that define quarterbacks at the professional level, third downs, 2-minute drills, high-pressure drives, the consistency was not there. The hesitation in the pocket became a recurring problem. The tendency to force throws under pressure led to costly turnovers. The inability to consistently move the chains when defenses were dialed in exposed real limitations in his game. Coaches can accept growing pains from a young quarterback. What they cannot accept is regression in the exact situations where growth is most needed. When you place Gabriel's performances in those critical moments directly alongside Shedeur's performances in those same types of situations, the gap was not just visible, it was undeniable. Then the off-field dynamics complicated things further. Gabriel was reported to have made comments referring to players like Shedeur Sanders as entertainers rather than true competitors. In a professional locker room, that kind of language does not go unnoticed. There is a clear line between competitive confidence and disrespect, and that line becomes dangerously thin when the player making those comments is not backing them up on the field. Gabriel was not. So when those remarks surfaced, they did not register as the words of a competitor with a chip on his shoulder. They registered as the words of a player feeling threatened by someone outperforming him. Veterans in that locker room took notice. Coaches took notice. Todd Monken took notice. Culture is built or destroyed one interaction at a time, and those comments were a significant problem in a building trying to establish a new standard. The social media situation made things considerably worse. Reports surfaced involving Gabriel's fiancée and social media posts directed at Shedeur Sanders that were widely described as disrespectful and unprofessional. The content of those posts became public, adding an unnecessary layer of chaos to an already complicated quarterback situation. But the bigger issue was not the posts themselves. It was Gabriel's response to them, or more accurately, his complete lack of one. He did not address the situation publicly. He did not distance himself from the controversy. He did not demonstrate to the coaching staff or the organization that he was above the noise and focused entirely on football. For a head coach like Todd Monken, who is in the process of constructing a culture from the ground up, that kind of off-field distraction is simply not tolerable. Silence in that moment was not neutral. It was a statement. One of the most telling moments of this entire saga came during Monken's first press conference as the Cleveland Browns head coach. He laid out his vision for the franchise. He expressed genuine excitement about the roster. He mentioned specific players by name and spoke about the direction he planned to take the offense. And then, he never once mentioned Dillon Gabriel. Not a single reference. In a league where every word a head coach speaks in a public setting is analyzed and scrutinized, that omission was not accidental. It was a deliberate signal. The Browns front office understood it. The locker room understood it. Gabriel's camp understood it. And the rest of the NFL understood it. Monken communicates through what he chooses to leave out just as powerfully as through what he chooses to say, and that press conference made the situation absolutely clear. From a business standpoint, Gabriel's trade value on the open market is a realistic consideration. He was selected in the third round, so prospective teams will factor that draft capital into any offer. The two most likely trade return scenarios, a veteran wide receiver or a developmental quarterback, both serve a specific purpose for the Browns. If Cleveland can bring back a proven, big-bodied receiver capable of moving the chains and creating mismatches opposite their existing skill players, they significantly upgrade the offensive weapons surrounding Shedeur Sanders heading into his first full season as the starter. That kind of move turns a quarterback transition into a genuine offensive rebuild. If the Browns land a developmental quarterback instead, they add depth and competition behind Shedeur while clearing the locker room tension that has defined this offseason. Either way, the Browns come out in a stronger position than they were in before Monken had that conversation. The broader message Monken is sending to the entire Cleveland Browns roster cannot be understated. This is not simply a decision about one quarterback. This is a declaration about what the franchise will stand for under his leadership. Talent without professionalism is not enough. Past draft position does not guarantee a roster spot. Cultural fit, accountability, and performance in critical moments will determine who is part of this team going forward. For players already in that locker room, this offseason has been an education. For free agents the Browns are targeting, this sends a powerful message about organizational standards. The Cleveland Browns have a head coach who makes bold decisions early, communicates directly with his players, and builds his roster around winning football, not around avoiding uncomfortable conversations. That is a significant culture shift in a franchise that has needed exactly this kind of leadership for years. With Gabriel likely on his way out, the full weight of this opportunity now rests on Shedeur Sanders. He is walking into a situation where the head coach has publicly declared belief in him, where the starting competition has been removed, and where the entire franchise has been restructured around what he can become. Shedeur has the talent, the pedigree, and the competitive personality to handle this moment. His father, Dillon Sanders, built an environment at Colorado that prepared him for exactly this kind of high-stakes, high-visibility pressure. But the NFL operates at a level of complexity and speed unlike anything in college football. The expectations in Cleveland, from the fanbase, from the organization, from Monken himself, are significant. Year one will not be about perfection. It will be about growth, leadership, and building the foundation of something real. Todd Monken has made his decision. He has committed his coaching reputation to Shedeur Sanders. Now Shedeur has to deliver. That is the full picture of where the Cleveland Browns stand heading into this critical offseason. Todd Monken made a bold call, made it directly and personally, and has staked the future of this franchise on Shedeur Sanders. Whether that gamble produces a long-awaited breakthrough or becomes another painful chapter in Cleveland sports history, that story is only just beginning. Now we want to hear from you directly. Did Todd Monken make the right call moving on from Dillon Gabriel this early in the process? Is Shedeur Sanders truly ready to be the guy for the Cleveland Browns? And how much should off-field behavior and locker room attitude factor into roster decisions at the NFL level? Drop your takes in the comments below, we read every single one. If you made it this far, do us a favor, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a Browns or Shedeur Sanders update. We have a lot more coming this offseason, and trust us, you do not want to be late to these conversations.